My relatives kidnapped me. I always thought family gatherings were a special kind of torture. The forced smiles, the endless questions about my non-existent love life, the cheek pinching from aunts who smelled like mothballs and regret. But I never imagined one would end with me tied up in the back of my Uncle Barry's minivan. It started at my grandma's 80th birthday party. The house was overflowing with relatives I hadn't seen in years. Everyone was drinking cheap champagne and telling exaggerated stories about the good old days. I was trying to make a discreet exit when my cousin, Jessica, intercepted me by the door. "Leaving so soon, Alex?" she asked, her smile a little too wide. Before I could answer, Uncle Barry clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Not so fast, kiddo. We have a surprise for you." That's when things got weird. The surprise was an intervention. Apparently, my family had decided my life was a complete failure. My job as a freelance graphic designer? Not a real career. My small city apartment? A shoebox. My decision to be single? Unnatural. They had a plan to fix me. It involved moving back to my tiny hometown, taking a job at my uncle's hardware store, and being set up with Jessica's friend from church, a woman whose main hobby was collecting porcelain dolls. I laughed. I thought it was a joke, a really elaborate, poorly thought out prank. "That's hilarious," I said, trying to push past them. "But I really have to go." Uncle Barry's grip tightened. "We're not asking, Alex." In that moment, the cheerful party atmosphere vanished. The smiles of my aunts and uncles turned into grim, determined masks. They saw this as an act of love, a rescue mission. I saw it as a kidnapping. Panic started to bubble in my chest. I looked around for an ally, anyone. My gaze landed on my grandma, sitting in her armchair, a sad, knowing look in her eyes. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. It wasn't a sign of disapproval, it was a warning. My heart sank. She was in on it too. Before I could scream, my Uncle Frank, a man built like a refrigerator, grabbed my other arm. They weren't rough, not in a way that would leave bruises. It was a firm, resolute kind of force, the kind you use on a spooked animal. They guided me out the back door, away from the neighbor's view, and toward the waiting minivan. The world seemed to slow down. The sound of crickets, the distant laughter from the party, the sickly sweet smell of my aunt's rose bushes, it all felt surreal. They bundled me into the back seat, and Jessica was already there with a roll of duct tape. "It's for your own good," she whispered, her eyes welling up with tears as she taped my wrists. The drive was silent and suffocating. I was wedged between a cooler full of potato salad and a stack of foldable chairs. Through the window, I watched the city lights fade into the dark, sprawling emptiness of the countryside. Each mile marker was a nail in the coffin of my life. My mind raced. How could they do this? How could they believe they had the right to hijack my entire existence? This wasn't love. It was control. It was a twisted, selfish fantasy they were trying to force upon me. We arrived at a remote lakeside cabin I hadn't seen since I was 10. It was my grandfather's old fishing spot, miles from anywhere. This was their re-education camp. The plan was to keep me here for a week, to detox me from my city life and remind me what really matters. For the next 3 days, it was a waking nightmare. They took my phone, my laptop, my wallet. They spoke to me in condescending, placating tones, as if I were a child having a tantrum. "You'll thank us for this one day," my Aunt Carol would say, serving me a plate of burnt toast. They tried to fill my days with wholesome activities. Fishing with Uncle Barry, who lectured me on the importance of a steady paycheck. Baking with Aunt Carol, who talked non-stop about the joys of marriage and babies. Forced heart-to-hearts with Jessica, who cried about how much she missed the old Alex. They didn't see me. They saw a project, a broken toy they needed to fix. The person I had become, the life I had built for myself, meant nothing to them. But they underestimated me. They thought I was a soft city boy who couldn't survive without Wi-Fi and takeout. They forgot I spent summers at this very cabin as a kid. They forgot I was the one my grandpa taught how to navigate the woods, how to find the North Star, how to live off the land if I had to. While they were busy congratulating themselves on their brilliant plan, I was making my own. I observed their routines. I noted when they were distracted, when they got lazy with their guard duty. My chance came on the fourth night. A storm rolled in, rattling the cabin's old windows. Everyone was huddled in the living room, engrossed in a board game. I feigned a stomach ache and went to the bathroom. The window was small and painted shut, but I pried it open a little bit each day. With a final push, it gave way with a silent groan. I slipped out into the pouring rain, my heart pounding against my ribs. The cold was a shock, but it was nothing compared to the suffocating warmth of that cabin. I ran. I ran into the dark, dense woods, the family's shouts fading behind me. Every snap of a twig sounded like footsteps, but I didn't stop. I used the skills my grandpa taught me, the same man whose memory they were soiling with their actions. I followed the creek downstream, knowing it would eventually lead to the old highway. It took hours. I was cold, soaked, and scratched up, but I was free. I finally stumbled onto the pavement just as the sun was beginning to rise. A truck driver, a kind man with a weathered face, pulled over. He took one look at my disheveled state and just said, "Where to, son?" When I got back to my apartment, I blocked their numbers. All of them. I changed the locks. A few days later, a letter arrived from my grandma. It wasn't an apology. It was a defense. She wrote about how she saw me wasting my potential, how she was scared I'd end up alone. She truly believed they had done the right thing. Inside the envelope was a $20 bill for the bus she'd written. The gesture was so small, so out of touch with the magnitude of what they'd done, that I had to laugh. It hit me then. The deepest betrayals often don't come from a place of malice, but from a warped, possessive form of love. They loved an idea of me, a version that fit neatly into their world. The real me, the one who was happy and independent, was a stranger to them, a problem to be solved. They didn't kidnap a person, they tried to cage a ghost they couldn't understand. I never saw them again. And in the quiet of my city life, I finally found the one thing they could never give me, peace. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you'd like to share, let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.